All right, so what do you think of when you combine the Eiffel Tower with French fries? You're probably not thinking of a movement of church planting, but I want to tell a story about a French-born pastor who moved to the United States and is now engaged in the work of kingdom multiplication in his city and back in his home country of France. It's an amazing story. Check it out.
Let me introduce you to Emmanuel Manu de Malaprade, who we belovedly call Manu. So Manu is European from France, okay? Born and raised, but he has a rich history. His father is an evangelist and a church planter. And so Manu grew up in the church, grew up knowing the Lord. And then when Manu came of age, he was called to ministry as well. And so he did church planting and evangelism in France, actually had a healing ministry. God would heal people through his work. And it's an incredibly important work because in France, only 1% of the population are evangelical Christian. They are craving a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Well, Manu met his bride over in Africa, actually. They were both doing missions work in Africa, and his wife is American. They got married and moved back to America, to Pittsburgh, and took roots in the Steel City. And so now Manu is a pastor in Pittsburgh, and he's been put in charge by his conference called the Harvest Conference to plant churches all throughout the city on the hills. They call this project Mission Pittsburgh. But here's the problem. Manu found himself terribly alone and isolated in the work. He was craving kingdom networking and connection.
And so we met Manu at a encounter weekend hosted by his conference, and the Lord used that time plus our relationship to knit us together and awaken him to the call of God in his own life. And the powerful part of this story is that Manu had already had a deep bench of tools and resources and skills. He had a plan and strategy already in mind. And everything that he learned at the encounter weekend fit hand in glove with what the Lord had already placed in his heart and mind. And so this beautiful partnership emerged, and Manu took the next step of faith to begin to launch a kingdom multiplication movement.
Yeah, it's so awesome. So now Manu leads a training center in Pittsburgh, and God is blessing the work. They're planting churches and making disciples in creative spaces and places all throughout the city. It's amazing. And I heard, by the way, they put French fries on their burgers in Pittsburgh. So I don't know if that's a coincidence. Maybe. They're even planting churches in places like laundromats. But get this, the work isn't staying in Pittsburgh. Manu has remained connected with other church planters in France, in Paris, and also the southern region of France. And so Manu has plans to open up a CDN training center and create a work of church multiplication to reach European French people. It's amazing. Manu has even gone so far as to translate the material of CDN into France. The kingdom is rolling and people are coming to Christ.
And so we're just praying for Manu. We're praying for these open doors, and we're praying for the Lord to bless the work of his hands.
Amen.
So I want to invite you to join us in doing just that. So every month we gather together on Launchpad Prayer. It's a global collection of kingdom leaders who pray to the Lord of the harvest to send workers into the harvest field. And so would you join us at Launchpad Prayer? And you could come by yourself, but you could also bring your friends, your family, your network, your whole congregation. Second, we want to invite you to give to the work of the Church Development Network. These stories are examples of the fruit that comes through generosity. The Lord blesses your giving. And third, I want to invite you to make Encounter Weekends part of the regular rhythm of your ministry.
Amen.
And so if there's not one right around you, go to our website and check out the Encounter Weekends and bring people with you. You'll never know what God does when they encounter Him. He shows up in powerful ways. And perhaps you're a pastor or a regional leader and you want to start a movement of kingdom multiplication. We'd love to help you start a CDN training center where you can see churches planted in creative spaces and places in your community and around the world. Listen, we are better together, and together we plant churches.